I'm going to ask Iris Wen to join us now on screen. Iris is an associate partner at Talanton. She's been with us since before the beginning, since Iris and Harry and I were working together in a pre-company as we formed Talanton. So Iris, it's really a joy to have you with us. Iris herself was an entrepreneur, founded a microfinance organization in Africa and spent time with her family living there before she went to Oxford for her MBA and joined Talanton in the earliest days back 5 years ago, 6 years ago, probably at this point, Iris. So thank you as well for joining us. You two really got to know one another well, sort of during the due diligence phase. But Iris, why don't you tell us what attracted you to Enda as a candidate for an investment from Talanton?
Thanks, David. Yeah, it's great to be with you all. When it comes to bringing a company into our pipeline, there are three major areas we screen for. The first thing we screen for is obviously impact. So does it fulfill our impact mandate of job creation? And what I appreciate about Enda is that it doesn't only create jobs directly, but Enda is a pioneer in bringing an entire industry to East Africa. It's the first of its kind producing performance running shoes in Africa. And as Nava said in that video, that brings in new skill sets and employment opportunities for the entire region. They were the first to bring in a specific type of Strobel machine into Africa and taught one of the workers for months, trained him for months, just to use that machine. But yet that machine by itself opened up a whole new world of possibilities actually in the running shoe industry or the shoe industry in general in East Africa. So the second thing we looked for was the potential for financial return. So does this company have the potential to grow 5 to 10x in the next 3 to 5 years? And absolutely they do. They have, as Nava said, they had a very strong year in 2020 because COVID forced a lot of people to run outside. And the Run Kenyan brand is very strong. So they're already in the US and European markets. Australia, Canada, and Brazil are knocking on the door, and we know that that's in the works for expansion. And the details are in the numbers, but we definitely felt that they had the potential to be a very strong candidate in our portfolio. And then the third thing we screen for in the initial screening aspect is the team and whether the team could execute this vision. So obviously I was very drawn to Nava's story. Weldon, the co-founder of Enda, also has the same heart for impact. And I felt that they had great advisors. So they had advisors who were veterans in the running shoe industry that put their name to Enda. One of the first things I did during the early due diligence process was to interview them, all of them, to understand what they felt was unique about Enda. So yeah.
And were there any other particular buttons that you felt you had to push to make sure that they were investment ready? Because as you know, frequently that's the key question we have when we first meet a company in Africa.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. So a key aspect of our due diligence process is to bring value to the company during the due diligence process, and not just to get to the investment alone. So Talanton has a very rigorous due diligence process that lasts usually 3 to 4 months. And one of the things we do during that time is to identify the gaps of the company, and we work with the leadership team in an open and transparent and hopefully also very encouraging way to think through some of those strategic gaps and risks. And this becomes a great foundation for our post-investment roadmap and support and tracking of the business, if we do invest. So with Enda, there are 2 things I'll touch on. One of the things we challenged the leadership team on was to really think through in detail their strategic 3 to 5 year growth plan and put that on paper and in the financial projections. I think the Enda team already had ideas for that growth, but because they were a small team, trying to keep up with the day-to-day operations of the business, often on survival mode, which is very typical of SMEs, they simply didn't have the bandwidth or really the available capital on the horizon to flesh out some of these ideas fully. So the first couple of conversations Nava and I had were around how Enda would need working capital for the next 2 production runs to make sure they were not stocked out of shoes. And I said to Nava, yes, that's absolutely very important. And we can definitely help fund that gap. But remember that we're looking to walk alongside you for the next 3 to 5 years. And we're looking to put in up to $3 million, right, dollars across these next few years as you grow. So allow yourself the space, as CEO, to think beyond the next 2 production runs, and we'll give you the space to do that. We'll walk alongside you to do that. So then we got into conversations about product development, design of the next, shoes, which is really important and exciting. And talent gaps, and then at what point Enda will produce enough shoes to bring manufacturing in-house so that they're owning and operating their own factory, and that would definitely be additional funding they would need on the horizon that we're looking at. And so the other thing I think that was really key during due diligence was stressing the discipline of cash flow forecasting of the business. So I now sit on the board of Enda for Talanton, and Nava knows this is like the beat of my drum, cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. And I think this is an important, so I think this is an important discipline for all of our businesses, but I think Enda in particular, because it operates in such a complex global supply chain and has a long order to cash process, and that's just the nature of this industry. So that's important as well. So anyway, I hope that gives the audience a taste of how meticulous our due diligence process is, which I think actually really sets us apart from other impact investment funds, and it sets us up to walk alongside our investees and provide the valuable technical support that they need post-investment.
Well, Nava, you were on the other side of this due diligence process. So I'm curious, what was the process like from your standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, Iris has given a great summary. It was very, very intense, right? Like, at some point, we were talking daily, like late at night, early in the morning. And like at some point I told her, I feel like I've known you for years, because you're constantly talking about the business and stuff like that. And what I liked about it was that there was an element where this is good for the business, but this is also good. It didn't feel like Talanton is here to make Talanton's case. It was also like, even whatever the outcome of this process is, there is some benefit in your business, in your processes, if you kind of work towards improving certain processes. And so I found that really helpful. And then also, as Iris mentioned, we, just by nature of having started from scratch, where we were like 2 people trying to do this and then building the team, it was really, changing your mentality is really hard when you're kind of like on survival mode all the time. And it's kind of like, you have to have that assurance of like, wait, so I really don't have, like, I can actually have room to breathe, like to look up from the day to day and look at the, like the blue sky. And so I feel like that has been one of the greatest things, to just have the space to think strategically and not to be on reaction mode all the time. And I would say lastly, it's also, like from a personal perspective, I got to meet Iris, I met her family, we spent time, our families actually spent like a week together. And so it felt like it's more than just like, it's an investment that kind of went to friendship and beyond. And you don't get investors like that. I've been here for a while, and you don't get that. So Iris is a personal friend, and yes, we do talk business, and sometimes it gets really tough when you're like, how do we do this, or things like that. But it makes it so much easier when you feel like the investor is with you on the same boat and doesn't have unrealistic expectations. So I think Talanton is very great in that it fills that gap perfectly.